of the information I talk about in this video is kind of old news. It happened a while ago, probably over a week ago now. I initially intended to cover it towards the beginning of the week, but then there was other news coming in at the time, and then over the course of the weekend, I was busy setting up my new studio stuff. I've got new desks, I've got new equipment. All of that took way longer to set up than I initially envisioned, but I'm back into the swing of things. So if you've already heard about this news, my apologies. I just wanted to add my commentary to it, and I hope that's enough. Before we get into the details, let me talk about what the news actually is, just in case you haven't been caught up. Of course, next generation consoles are right around the corner. They're coming out at the end of the year, and people are expecting to hear the next Capcom game announcement, or at least the next Capcom fighting game announcement, pretty soon to go alongside the next generation of consoles. But the reason this is news right now is because the voice actor that plays V is a character from Devil May Cry 5, played by Brian Hanford. Brian took to Twitter recently and said the following: "I'm absolutely pumped for the next Capcom Versus game. New characters, but could be very familiar." The internet took this tweet by storm, and a lot of people are running with the idea that the next Capcom fighting game project will be a Versus game, and he already knows about it because he's been voice acting in it, or maybe one of his friends has been voice acting in it, and he just kind of knows about it by word of mouth in the industry. Which I certainly think is likely, because that does sound like what Brian is detailing here. He specifically talks about new characters, but it could also be fairly familiar. However, Brian did come out with a clarification tweet. Specifically, he said, "Let me be 100% clear. I have no knowledge of any new Capcom games or potential of what any of their games may detail." This tweet was about being a big fan and seeing an Instagram ad about Capcom characters. Again, please understand, I am in no way teasing or revealing info. Normally, I would not be the one to jump down to conspiracies. When I was first looking into this information, I was willing to make a video that was basically, hey, everyone, calm down. It's just a random tweet from a guy in the industry. Maybe he's just a fan of the product or something like that. But to be honest, these two tweets don't really line up with each other. In the initial tweet, he does specifically go out of his way to detail what this potential game is about. New characters that could be very familiar. Granted, that's not a lot of detail, but it is a specific notation. Don't get me wrong, it is possible that the wording is just odd for some reason. Heck, maybe he was legitimately drunk. I don't know. But if I was to go through the situation that he detailed in the second tweet, you know, being a voice actor, going through Twitter, seeing one of your characters on a Capcom ad, I wouldn't tweet something like, "Pumped for the next Capcom Versus game. New characters, but it could be very familiar." I would tweet something much closer to, "I hope we get another Capcom Versus game in the future. I would love to voice V in a future Capcom Versus game if we get one." Or something like that. The existence of the Capcom Versus game that he's talking about is already baked into his initial tweet. Now, language and how we present certain ideas and not noticing that an assumption is going to be baked into a tweet is something that's kind of difficult to understand sometimes, especially if you're not used to public speaking or anything like that. So again, it is possible that the wording of this tweet is just not on point, and it's just some random tweet that he probably didn't expect to blow up. Maybe he isn't very Twitter savvy. Not to throw shade at Brian, but he doesn't exactly have the biggest Twitter following. He has 2,000 followers right now. To put that in context, I'm an incredibly small YouTuber, and I have a larger Twitter following than Mr. Brian Hanford. It's very possible that he's just not used to managing his words in a public setting. But regardless of whether Brian Hanford actually knows anything about the next Capcom Versus game or Marvel vs. Capcom game, I still would like to talk about the idea of that game. In case you aren't familiar with my history, I started playing fighting games only a few years ago. I actually started playing because I was interested in DC at the time, and Injustice was coming out, and that's kind of like a big crossover thing, and I was excited about playing a NetherRealm fighting game for the first time, and then I kind of transitioned into being a more fighting game player, and that's kind of what I do now for a living, which is pretty awesome. I brought that piece of history up to explain that I didn't play that big wave of Versus games we got. I didn't get to experience the game that everyone seems to love, which is MVC3. I've played the story mode, but I never tried to play it competitively or anything like that. That was so out of my field of vision when I was first playing these games. I was excited to try MVCI now that I started playing fighting games online, but I wasn't exactly impressed with it. Outside of that, the only Versus games I've actually spent time with, or any meaningful time with, is BB Tag and Dragon Ball FighterZ. And I enjoy both of those games, but I also enjoy them incredibly casually, right? I don't lab them, I don't take them super seriously, it's just something I play with friends. I also don't have much experience with Capcom. I've tried jumping into Street Fighter V, and I enjoy it for the most part, but I also feel like I've missed the chance to really enjoy that game. And this is true for most genres, but specifically with fighting games, it feels like if you're not there at launch, it's really hard to go back to because everybody's already figured out the game. So I'm never gonna go back, and I'm never never going to play MVC3, I'm never going to go back and play MVCI, and I'm never going to go back and play Street Fighter V. So whatever the next Capcom game is, I'm looking forward to it, because realistically it's going to be my first Capcom game. At least the first one that I take seriously past just playing the story mode. And just in case it wasn't clear, I'm specifically talking about a Capcom fighting game. I've played plenty of regular Capcom games before. Well, of course I would be interested in whatever the next Capcom versus game is, regardless of whether it's Marvel versus Capcom or Capcom versus SNK or whatever. I will be interested in the next Capcom vs. game, and I'm almost definitely going to cover it. I am curious to see what they do with the future of Marvel vs. Capcom. Are they going to stick to their guns and follow something that MVCI did? Or are they going to move back to the art style that we had in MVC3 or something similar to it? I would really like to see them support Marvel vs. Capcom, like a new Marvel vs. Capcom game. Let's say it's Marvel vs. Capcom 4. I would love to see them support that game throughout the entirety of the life cycle of the next generation consoles, kind of like what they've done with Street Fighter V, but with a Marvel vs. Capcom game. I think that would be really awesome, and it would definitely give me a reason to take the game more seriously. But right now, I don't think the Brian Hanford tweet is like enough to solidify anything right now, though I certainly hope it's happening. And as a matter of fact, while we're here, I'll say that I would definitely like to see V as a playable character in that game. V absolutely has a moveset suitable for a versus game. Anyway, that's going to be it for me. I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you're looking forward to whatever the next Capcom project is. My name is Bilbzy, and I'll be sure to catch you in the next one.